sort of see this landscape, what they see in women's sports specifically is massive audience, massive growing interest, underinvestment. So you pencil it out,
nice metrics,
and that's what you're looking for.
Yeah. Is this an inflection point when it comes to women's sports in general? I think of what happened with, and we'll talk about Brackets for a Cause in a minute, but I think about what happened with Caitlin Clark and the interest around Caitlin Clark and people saying, wait a second, this is a star we're going to follow wherever she goes.
So here's another great thing that you guys may have seen. For the first time in history, Women's March Madness, more viewers than men's in the final. So this Sunday, when Caitlin Clark, came up just short against South Carolina, Monday, UConn wins. Fewer people watch that game than watch Caitlin Clark. So I think it is. I mean, we literally just, I ran downstairs to do this with you guys because we just finished taping an upcoming episode of Deal with Stephen A. Smith from ESPN. Yeah. And we actually posed that question to him. Can Caitlin Clark do for the WNBA what she did for the NCAA? And he says, yes, it's possible. And one of the things he said is because she's a great shooter. She's an unbelievable player, and her game will translate. We already know that coming into this next season, coming into the WNBA season, she's going to go number one next week, almost certainly. The opening game ticket prices for Indiana, where she is most likely to play, $500 a seat. That's unheard of.
Yeah.
Now, what's fascinating to stitch it all together is this was the hope in 1999 when Brandi Chastain and her team won the World Cup. So there's a lot more momentum, but I think most importantly, and you guys can appreciate this more than anything, there's a lot more money.
Yeah, exactly. But it's interesting. I don't know. Is that it? Women often money in terms of the attention, the money, or is it still going to be these players that all of a sudden everybody's drawn to it?
Yes. So you need more players, you need more investment, you need more sponsorship dollars, and you need more revenue because ultimately one of the huge gaps still, I mean, you talk about pay gap, there is a massive pay gap between professional between male athletes and female athletes.
I mean, you'll often say, well, the TV rights aren't there, or this is how they
TV rights are coming, and but they're nowhere near, say, the NFL or something like that. So that is where a lot of work is still to come for sure. But what you're seeing, I think, and there was a very interesting example of this actually in women's soccer last night. Eli Manning is co-owner of Gotham FC, over in New Jersey, playing their home games there. Patrick Mahomes is a minority owner of the KC Current. Those teams are playing. Guess who was smack talking on X last night? Eli Manning showing off his championship ring from Gotham and saying to Patrick Mahomes, yeah, you've got 3 Super Bowl rings, I only have 2, but you don't have one of these. But that actually, I mean, it's hard to sort of quantify what that means, but if the most important athletes literally in the world are talking about this game, it's a pretty good bet.
Yeah, exactly. Like you think about that attention and their interest in what that means. Brackets for a Cause?
Yeah, let's do it. So, as you may have read in the New York Post yesterday, Whitney Wolfe Herd from Bumble wins the men's bracket. She came in second 2 years ago, recruited into this contest by John Gray, who's an investor in Bumble. She has now bested him and actually came in second 2 years ago and came in first this year, picked UConn, beat out Joe Reese, our friend of this show, I know.
It's kind of hard for the dudes. Can I ask that?
I think it's great. I mean, she is a brackets whiz, and on the women's side,
such a diplomat.
On the women's side, Don Cornwell, who I believe you guys also know, longtime banker at Morgan Stanley, then at PJT, now running his own sports fund with Jonathan Nelson. He came in first on the women's side, almost $1.2 million raised this year, records all around.
And bottom line, that's what it's about.
It's amazing.
The amount of money that's raised. I love the enthusiasm, how everybody gets into it, but bottom line, a lot of money.
Just a reminder of some of the names in here, okay? Harvey Schwartz at Carlisle, Bill Ackman, Ken Griffin coming in third,
Mike Bloomberg,
Cliff Asmus.
Like the ultimate.
Yeah. Jason, did you?
The ultimate.
I don't see your name on the bracket.
No, I don't quite have the cheddar for that power bracket.
All right, be sure to get the deal with Alex Rodriguez and Jason Kelly. That's tonight at 9 p.m. Wall Street time on Bloomberg Original.
Bloomberg Business Week is brought to you by MassMutual, a leader in wealth management, offering financial advisors the best of both worlds with resources to help you run your business and the freedom to run it your way. Learn more at massmutual.com/wealth.
Now, your 3-day weather forecast on Bloomberg 1130.
Rain and wind forward side. Rain could be moderate to heavy along with the chance of a thunderstorm. Low temperature 55 to 60 tomorrow. Leftover showers during the morning will end, followed by partial sun. Breezy and 65 for the afternoon Friday. At night, fair breezy cooler 45 to 50. Sun and clouds and 50s coming up on Saturday. Sunday, partly sunny, maybe some late day showers and in the 60s. This is Gary Best with your weekend weather on Bloomberg 1130.
Tomorrow, Michael McKee sits down with Boston Fed President Susan Collins.
I do want to see more evidence of that sustained trajectory.
What's your timeline for Fed rate cuts?
I do believe it'll be appropriate to begin easing policy later this year.
Boston Fed President Susan Collins. Tomorrow morning at 9.
Expecting all indicators to be well aligned is too high a bar.
Listen on Apple CarPlay and Android Auto with the Bloomberg Business app. And always on Bloomberg 1130. Context changes everything.
MassMutual is leading wealth management by offering financial advisors the best of both worlds, providing resources to run your business and freedom to run it your way, helping you make a name for yourself with our good name behind you. Learn more at massmutual.com/wealth.
Sorry, but we actually have a wait list for our Monstera.
Shaw's greenhouse is really bringing in the green.
We can't keep snake plants and stuff.
She needs a construction manager to build on her roots and grow.
We could add a whole section for ferns. Here we have dahlias, dahlias, and more dahlias.
Indeed can help her hire great people fast.
I need Indeed.
Indeed you do. You can schedule and conduct virtual interviews all from your employer dashboard. Visit Indeed.com/credit and get $75 towards your first sponsored job. Terms and conditions apply.
eBay Motors is here for the ride. Go ahead, feel your engine. Admire that perfectly installed exhaust. Your vehicle's moving along this freeway like it was made from fresh installs and a whole lot of love. With eBay Motors, you get over 122 million parts to keep it running. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, they'll be the perfect fit every time. Plus, at these prices, well, we're burning rubber, not cash. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply.
Buzz around artificial intelligence is seemingly everywhere. Is your portfolio keeping up? Consider the Global X Artificial Intelligence and Technology ETF, ticker AIQ, which invests in dozens of stocks at the leading edge of this disruption. Investing involves risk, including possible loss of principal. Technology companies can be affected by rapid product obsolescence and intense industry competition. Before investing, carefully consider the fund's objectives, risks, charges, expenses, and more in the full or summary prospectus at globalxetfs.com. Read carefully. Distributed by SEI Investments Distribution Co.
Golf updates from Augusta on Bloomberg Radio are brought to you locally by Audi. Don't let someone else drive off in the Audi model you've always wanted. Visit your local tri-state Audi dealer to get behind the wheel of yours today.
Coming up next on Bloomberg Business Week, we're checking in with the mayor of Tulsa, Oklahoma. GT Bynum is going to be joining us live in our studio. This is Bloomberg.
It's 4:21 on Wall Street. We do check markets all day long here at Bloomberg. Morgan Stanley shares down 5.5% today after a report that a number of federal regulators are scrutinizing the firm's efforts to prevent potential money laundering by wealthy clients. Now, the Journal, citing sources, says the SEC, the Office of the Controller of the Currency, and other Treasury Department offices are digging into whether the New York-based bank has done enough to investigate the identities of risky clients. Stocks ended the day mixed, so the Dow's gains faded, ending the session down 2 points, down less than 0.1%. S&P up 38 today. That was a gain of 0.7%. Nasdaq Composite Index up 1.7%. 10-year yield at 4.57% with a 2-year 4.94%. Spot gold today up 1.8%. 23.74 the ounce on gold. West Texas Intermediate crude oil down 0.7%. 85.61 a barrel. Checking in now at the Augusta National Golf Club after this morning's long weather delay, 2.5 hours. At the top of the leaderboard, Bryson DeChambeau of the U.S., 7 under par. He has played through 17. England's Danny Willett, 4 under par. Tiger Woods now on the course. I'm Charlie Pelleton. That is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
Thank you so much for that update, Charlie Pell. I really do appreciate it. Well, if you're a regular viewer or listener of Bloomberg Business Week, then you know we like to check in with mayors across America for a snapshot of what's going on in their communities. After all, Carol, they're the ones on the front lines dealing with the macroeconomic challenges we talk about each and every day. Economic development, affordable housing, rising costs, not to mention the politics of it all.
Yeah, it's a great snapshot of so much in our world and really on the ground. G.T. Bynum is one of those mayors. He's the mayor of Tulsa, Oklahoma, a city his family has lived in for 6 generations. And a fun fact, his great-great-paternal grandfather was mayor as well as his maternal grandfather, so it goes back many generations. We should point out, too, Mayor Bynum in the city of Tulsa. I've worked with Bloomberg Philanthropies and its Cities program, but he's here away from his own city and here in New York City. Mayor Bynum, so good to have you here with us. Welcome. We do like to talk with mayors around the country because it does feel like sometimes we're looking up too high and not getting down on the ground. And so tell us about what you guys are seeing when it comes to the economy, the needs of your citizens, kind of the stress points or where there's growth. Give us kind of an overview, if you will.
Well, I think at the local level, and I hear this from my fellow mayors when we get together, one that I think is really important is you never run into the partisan divides that you see so much about at the national level. Like when mayors get together, we want to know what you're doing on homelessness, what are you doing on infrastructure and public safety. So I love that part of being a mayor. For us, I think from an economic standpoint, we definitely see the impact of inflation and the impact that that's had on people's buying power, and even us in operating a city government. You know, we're heavily funded by sales tax, and we had a really, from the outside, looks like a nice 2-year run where we had this massive increase in revenue, but it was because of the cost of goods going up and sales tax going up, and so that's eating into our employees' paychecks. And so we've had to really be disciplined about staying on top of that and improving increased employee pay and compensation to couple with that. The other big one that I hear from mayors all over America really is around homelessness. There is not a city that has it all figured out. If there was, I think we'd all be ripping them off and figuring out how to pay for it.
Right.
And instead, you just see these laboratories of democracy all over America right now, where cities are trying out different approaches, collecting data on what's working and what's not, and trying to double down on those strategies that do.
Oftentimes, one of the reasons people find themselves on the streets is because housing is too expensive. And we talk about housing being affordable, or the lack of affordability of housing in many parts of the country. Tulsa by no means immune to that. According to your own data that you provided us, you need over 10,000 affordable housing units in the next few years to accommodate people who live there.
That's exactly right.
How are you doing it?
We always thought of ourselves as being a very affordable place. When you compare Tulsa to like the coast of the United States, we're incredibly affordable, but you have to take into consideration what your local per capita income is when figuring that out. And so to your point, we just had an independent study conducted, funded by a local philanthropic foundation, that says that we need about 13,000 housing units in the next 10 years. And that's everything from homeless shelter space to mansions and everything in between. What we've tried to focus on as a city are those things that the free market is not going to address, and that is homeless shelter space, permanent supportive housing, and transitional housing. We just passed in August a $70 million voter-approved initiative to help subsidize those things, to make it more appealing for private sector developers to build that, knowing that they can get some support from the city for doing it. We just had the other thing that we tried to focus on is reducing the regulatory burden from the city. We've seen a lot of cities that will have a lot of incentive funding available, but the regulatory burden is so great, and so private sector developers still don't build there. So we've reduced that significantly in Tulsa. Because of that, last year we had the most home starts we've ever had in the history of our city. But we're going to have to continue to ramp that up just to catch up to the pace we need to be keeping for the next decade to get the amount of housing that everybody tells us we need to reduce homelessness in our city.
All right, so there's demand for housing, no doubt about it. You want to make sure it's affordable, right, for the people who need it. And I'm just curious that at the same time then, so you want to have an economy within your city and surrounding environs that can support that. What are you doing on that side of the ledger?
I would say probably a couple big things. One, and I know last time I was on here, we talked about our focus on advanced aerial mobility. Since then, we were one of 26 cities in America to receive a Build Back Better Regional Challenge grant, which we're using to build out the advanced aerial mobility, drones especially in the Tulsa area. We've partnered with the Osage Nation to build a drone testing corridor in Tulsa, or in their nation, their reservation. It's about 70 miles long. So we're trying to build that industry industry out, the other big thing that we're doing is focusing on entrepreneurship and fostering that, and in particular in our immigrant community in Tulsa.
What is your immigrant community in Tulsa?
It's largely it's going to be, well, one, it's all over the world. We have the largest Afghan refugee community in Tulsa of any city in America. It's heavily Hispanic, and then also a significant Asian population that has come as a result of refugee work that the faith-based community in Tulsa has been doing for decades. And so we just opened up a new business incubator in probably the most densely populated area of our city where the immigrant community lives, to focus in particular on immigrant entrepreneurs and making sure they have connections to the assets that they need to build new businesses in our city, because our data we've collected shows that the inclination to entrepreneurship amongst immigrants, at least in Tulsa, is much higher than the non-immigrant population. So we want to make sure they have the resources they need. So there's a tremendous amount of work that's being done. Those are just two things. But you're right. We've got to keep pace with economic growth to support all of this housing and the population growth. We're also, not to belabor the point,
but the tax base too.
We have become an accidental mecca for remote work as well. And I know we visited about that a bit last time.
Yeah. Well, I do want to talk about work because the unemployment rate relatively low in Tulsa, about 4%, according to the Labor Department. With all the companies that you're trying to attract to the area, are they going to be able to find the workers they need in Tulsa?
We believe so for one big reason, well, two big reasons. One, we're very much focused on building up quality of life in our city so it's easier for them to recruit people to Tulsa. We're on a 20-year run now of major investments. At our concert arena that we built has been the concert arena 2 of the last 4 years. We lost out to Madison Square Garden 1 year. We lost out to the Staples Center in LA 1 year. So not bad competition for a concert arena in Tulsa. We just opened the greatest park gift to any city in American history about 3 years ago, the Gathering Place. It's a $480 million entirely privately funded park in the heart of our city. We're building a lake in the middle of our city that's going to open on Labor Day weekend. We're building a museum to house the greatest collection of American art outside of that owned by the federal government that is in Tulsa. We just opened the Bob Dylan archive about 2 years ago. So there's a lot going on from a quality of life standpoint. And the other is, and I think this is really important, we want to be the best city in America for immigrants. We're working very hard to make Tulsa a city that really lives up to the hopes and aspirations that immigrants from all around the world have when they come to the United States. We want them to be welcome. We want them to find great jobs and opportunity in our city.
You're in our great city for a specific reason. Tell us about what you were doing last night.
So The Outsiders, which I imagine a lot of your listeners have either read the book.
7th grade. 7th grade.
Right?
Required reading.
Like, oh my God.
The Greasers and the Socias.
That's right. So The Outsiders was